Hello friends, welcome back to Liz's Reading Corner, or welcome if you're new here. I'm Liz and I like books, and today we are doing the best and worst of 2025. I have the top 5 books that I liked the least in 2025 and my top 10 books that I really liked in 2025, because 10 was difficult enough. There was no way I was getting to 5. So yeah, these are just like out of the 170, I think I'm at 171, is the 29th of December and 29th, 30th. No, it's the 30th of December. So I think we may be able to round it out to an even 172, because I'm in the middle of reading a book. But yeah, of the 170, and the book that I'm reading is not going to make either of these lists, so we're safe to record this right now. But yeah, so these are out of the 171 books that I've currently finished reading in 2025. I'm already trying to say 2026, that's terrible. These are the top 5 that I liked the least. I feel like no one's going to be surprised if you have watched any of the videos that I have made. There shouldn't really be any surprises, because I'm pretty sure all bar one, because I've only just finished reading one of them, and that'll be in a video that's coming up. It's one of the ARC reads that I got for 2025. Yeah, all the other 4 have been in videos that I've already put up on YouTube. So coming in at number 5, this will surprise absolutely no one, is It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. This book was very problematic in my opinion. It normalized domestic violence and kind of apologized for domestic violence and domestic violence related issues within relationships. I know at the end there's kind of like a move away from it a little bit, but the overwhelming majority of the book is just domestic violence, apologizing for and normalizing domestic violence, and it just really did not sit very well with me. And I know there are a lot of Colleen Hoover fans out there. That is fine. You can like her books as much as you like, but her books are not for me. I don't like her writing. I don't agree with It Ends With Us and any of the stuff, like in any of the stuff in that book. I'll finish that sentence first. So in the blurb, like the author's blurb at the end of the book, she did say that she had experienced domestic violence, and that she was right, or that I think her mother experienced domestic violence, actually I think it was, but she had like grown up with domestic violence, and she was trying to write about it in a way that sort of like brought awareness to domestic violence, and I am all for that. I'm all for bringing awareness to domestic violence. Both men and women can experience domestic violence, and I think that it is something that needs to be talked about a lot more, because it is not something that should be normalized in society in the slightest. My issue with this book is that it didn't bring it up in a way that like called it out for what it is. It just kind of apologized for it and made it normalized, and I don't like that. I think that there are better ways to write about these sorts of issues, like social issues, that bring awareness to them without kind of like normalizing and apologizing for them. So yeah, I really had an issue with It Ends With Us, obviously. And if you've seen the vlog, I absolutely slammed that book in the vlog, and I felt really bad actually when I finished reading it, because I'd read it and I also watched the movie, which was atrocious and has its own problems. But when I finished reading it, I like ranted to my husband for a solid 10 minutes. Like, I was really angry. There was some stuff said that were not safe for YouTube even. So it's probably a good thing I ranted to him first, but I just need to apologize to my husband again for that 10-minute rant, because that was something else. Book number 4 was Shogun by James Clavell. I know that, again, this is a really popular book. It is something that a lot of people really enjoy. It is essentially, I can't remember where they're from, but like these people are shipwrecked on Japan's coast, and they are essentially sort of like taken captive, but then become immersed in Japanese society in like the, I want to say 15 or 1600s. It could be 1700s, but like hundreds of years ago. So it's kind of like essentially a historical fantasy book. This book is insanely long. It's like 1,200 pages, I think it was. it's over 1,000 pages, however long it is, and I think that it genuinely could have been half that size easily, if not less. Probably half. I would say 600 pages would have been fine for the story, but there was like 600 pages of filler, just random filler that did nothing to progress the story and just made it very, very long and very, very like onerous to read. It was just a slog, and if you're getting into chunky books, would not recommend that book at all. I might actually do a video of chunky books that are worth reading. That might be a good one, because I do like to read chunky books. But Shogun is not it. Like, it could have been such an amazing story, genuinely an amazing story, if it was like half the size, because yeah, there was so much filler in it, and it just made it so uninteresting to read. So I did not enjoy that in the slightest, and I was really disappointed because I was so excited to finally pick up Shogun and read it and read through the series, and I'm not going any further. Like, that is it. I am done, because apparently the rest of the books are not much better, and I'm not putting myself through that. Book number 3. So number 3 of my top 5 that I liked the least this year is a book that I've just finished reading. I actually bought it earlier in the year. It was one of my most anticipated reads for the year. I was so excited for it because the premise was amazing, and I feel like we kind of got ripped off for it, and that is Wake Up and Open Your Eyes by Clay McLeod Chapman. This book was meant to be kind of like I don't even know how to describe it now that I've read it. This was meant to be, so my understanding of this book was that it was meant to be like a book about this like TV channel that sort of like hypnotizes the people who watch it, and the main character has to like save his family, but that's not really what it is. Like, I mean, it kind of is, but it isn't. So the people are hypnotized, I guess, by this TV program. They're kind of like, they're turned into zombies, like mindless zombies, and they just start attacking everyone. Like, it is weird. There are some scenes in there that should not have happened. I can't really say much about it without spoiling the book, but I regret buying this book. I disliked this book immensely. Like, it obviously is one of my least favorite books for this year because it's in this list, but also it was just, I don't know, it felt like simultaneously the longest and shortest book I've ever read, because the pacing was really, really weird. The scenes, I guess he was going for like just a weird book and like weird vibes, and that's cool, but also it was just like a mishmash of like horror and post-apocalyptic tropes. It was weird and very weird. I just didn't enjoy it, and the ending was really not worth the payoff either. Like, I disliked the ending immensely. So yeah, I was really, really disappointed in this book for those reasons. But yeah, it just, I don't know, I can't take back, it only took me a day to read. I wish I'd read something else, to be honest, but I did get it off of my list. I've read it now, so that's something. But yeah, it was very disappointing. Number 2 of my 5 least liked books for this year is The Staircase in the Woods by Chuck Wendig. This one I got as an ARC. I was very excited. This was one of my most anticipated reads for the year, and it was also disappointing. It's just basically these friends go into the woods, a staircase appears, and I think one of them disappears from memory, and the rest of them have to go and find that friend. That's how much of an impact it made on me. That's how boring I found that book, because it just, I don't know, again, the pacing was off. I didn't like any of the characters. I just really, really struggled to read this, and it was very disappointing. And I know a lot of people have liked it, and again, that's cool. We all like different things. We don't need to like the same books. That is absolutely fine. But it just was not it for me. It really, really was a chore to read. And yeah, I cannot get the time back that I used to read that book. And speaking of books that I absolutely disliked reading and can't get the time back from, my number 1 least liked book for 2025 is going to be no surprise to anyone, and that is Alchemized by Sen Lin Yu. detested is too strong of a word, but I really did not like this book. I slammed this book in like the first vlog of my 31 books in 31 days. When did I do that? In October. And I still feel exactly the same. Like, it irritates me to no end that people are like raving about this book and saying that it's this amazing book, and it makes me mad, because I, again, hate that we are normalizing rape and forced reproduction and non-consent, and I hate that. It irritates me that this is now a trope that we are following through, and it is being made popular, because it should not be in any books. It should not be normalized. It should not be written about in a way that it makes it okay in any way, shape or form. And I hated it. I hated this book so much. I think that it could have been, again, like a quarter of the pages, and it would have been an okay book if they took out all of the other issues in the book that I don't like. But yeah, I think my biggest issue with this book is that when I read the description of it, it wasn't portrayed in a way. So the description fit probably the first 200 pages, where it was about like people having different abilities, and like different family lines having different abilities, and like different variations of power. And yeah, once we got to like the grape and the forced reproduction, which is 200-ish pages in, I was done. I forced myself to read it because I wanted to finish that book for the 31 books in 31 days, but I absolutely cannot get that time back, and that took me so long to read because I hated that book so much. But yeah, so that was my number 1 least liked, or those were my top 5 least liked books of 2025. Now we are going to leave the negatives and get into the positives. So like I said before, I could not settle on a top 5 of my most liked for this year, so I had to do a top 10, because I actually read quite a few really, really good books for this year. I will be doing a wrap-up video in like the first week of January, so we can see like my stats and everything. But I do know that my overall, like my average rating, bless you, but I do know based off of Storygraph that my average rating is like 3.3 something. Like, it's very, very low, because I did read a lot of just middling and like average books, but I did read also quite a few really, really good books. So that is where my top 10 is coming in. So my number 10 is Strange Pictures by Uketsu. I have also read Strange Houses. I didn't like that one as much. That one was only, I think, a 4-star read. Strange Pictures was 5-star, and there is also another one coming out, or another book coming out, called Strange Buildings next. I think it's next year it's coming out, which is really, really exciting, because I can't wait to read more of this author's work. This book is a set of, I think it's like 3 stories from memory. In the first one, there is like this woman's blog, and it is like a really chilling sort of like foreboding of what is going to happen. So she kind of solves a mystery. The second story is based off of child's sketches, which sort of show like this horrible thing that's happening in their apartment, or has happened in their apartment. And then the third one is a sketch made by a murder victim in like their final moments, and that leads an amateur like sleuth down a rabbit hole of trying to solve this murder, which was really, really cool. So I loved these stories, and I can't wait for Strange Buildings to come out. That was amazing. Number 9 is Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. This is essentially like a Sherlock Holmes kind of retelling. I loved this so much, and I was really excited by the fact that the second book also came out this year, like not long after I finished reading The Tainted Cup. But then I think I was in like a slump, and I didn't enjoy reading the second one, so I'll be trying to read that again very soon, actually. But this one follows Din, who is an engraver. So he can smell a scent, and that magically engraves like the entire, like every single detail into his brain of like whatever it is he is viewing after he smells this scent. and he is assigned to an investigator, Anna, I think her name is, and she is like one of the greatest investigators in their area, and they are investigating why people seem to be mysteriously turning into trees, essentially. And I absolutely adored it. I loved everything about this book. It was so good. I love Anna, I love Din, the way that they work together and how eccentric she is really made this book. It just really tied them together. So yeah, I'll be reading A Drop of Corruption very, very soon, but The Tainted Cup was also really good, and I highly recommend it. It's kind of like a murder mystery crossed with like a fantasy. It was really, really cool. So number 8 is one of my most recent favorites. I absolutely adore this. It's very, I don't want to say controversial, but it's a very polarizing book. You either love it or you hate it, and I obviously loved it because it's in this list, and that is Not Quite Dead Yet by Holly Jackson. So this one is about a girl who is attacked after being at a fair. So she goes home and she's attacked in a very violent attack, and she finds out when she wakes up in the hospital that she's lucky to be alive right then, but also she has this like fracture in her neck that means that she will die in 7 days, and even if she was to have surgery, like the surgery is almost guaranteed to kill her. And so instead of having the surgery and potentially living, she decides to solve her own murder. And I know a lot of people really did not enjoy this book, but I loved it. It was my first Holly Jackson book, and I absolutely ate it up. So I need to read more of Holly Jackson's work, I think. But yeah, so Not Quite Dead Yet by Holly Jackson. Absolutely loved it. I definitely gave that one 5 stars. Number 7 is We Kept Her in the Cellar by W.R. Gorman. This is a Cinderella retelling. I loved it. It was very, very different from like the original Cinderella twist. It certainly gave a new light on the evil stepsisters, because this one is told from the point of view of the evil stepsisters. So like they marry into the family, and Cinderella is the bad guy essentially. So the stepsisters are not so evil. And I ate this up. I could not read this one fast enough. I loved it so much. I think I am starting to enjoy retellings a lot more, and yeah, I think this was one of the first retellings that I read that I actually really, really enjoyed. I loved it. So it's just like essentially Cinderella, but make it horror is the vibes for that book. And yeah, like I said, I loved it. Number 6 is A Language of Dragons by S.F. Williamson. This one is set in early 1900s London. There's a class system, so they have like levels, I think it is. So there's 3rd class, 2nd class, and 1st class. 3rd class is like the lowest of the low. They get like not very many opportunities. They just don't really have much of a life. They're essentially like living in the slums. 2nd class is obviously like middle class, and then 1st class is upper class. So poor, medium, rich. And our main character, Vivian, or Viv, I think they call her, she is currently 3rd class, and she is studying for these exams to get into an academy so that she can train with dragons, and because that's all she's ever wanted to do, and that would mean that she would go from 3rd class to 2nd class and live just a better life. So she manages to get this internship to study dragon languages, which is like a really, really like niche thing. And when she goes for help one night, she unwittingly starts a civil war, and she then has to work to sort of undo that, like what she's done, like the damage that she's done essentially. And if she doesn't, then like her sister, because they kidnap her sister is like in trouble. So it's kind of like this would work actually really well for the secret societies. So I just have done a video. So the video that comes out before this one is like my bingo board. This one would actually work really well for secret societies, because she has to go and work for like this secret society, like this clandestine faction of the government, so a secret society, in order to sort of like help undo all of the harm that she has done. Number 5 is Bat Eater and Other Names for Cora Jung, or Jang. by Kylie Lee Baker. I loved this book. I could not read it fast enough. This is another one that is very polarizing. I think it tends to be either you love it or you hate it. I loved it. Absolutely adored it. So we are following Cora, who is at the very start of the book waiting at the subway with her sister, for a train, and some random person just comes in and pushes her sister in front of a train, and it happens all in front of, right in front of Cora. And so that kind of pivots her from working where she used to work, and she becomes a crime scene cleaner. So she goes in and cleans up after crimes, murders, those sorts of things. And this kind of is a commentary on how Asian people were treated during COVID, because this is set during COVID. This is set in 2020 and 2021, I think it is. But during COVID times. And also it has sort of a supernatural theme, or a supernatural element to it, I should say, where the Chinese, I think it is, there's Asian mythology or Asian beliefs of the afterlife in there. I can't remember if it's Chinese. If it's not Chinese, I'm sorry. But yeah, there's elements of the afterlife and Asian beliefs of what happens after you die. So yeah, I absolutely loved that. It was really, really good. It was so good. Obviously, because it's on this list. Number 4 is Too Old for This by Samantha Downing. This follows Lottie, who is a retired serial killer. She lives in a retirement, I don't want to say retirement village, but where she lives, she's surrounded by fellow retirees. And one day this person comes investigating something that happened, or numerous unsolved happenings in Lottie's past, and I don't know how to say this without spoiling the story. She doesn't take kindly to this person investigating, and what follows is just a series of mishaps and trying to cover her tracks for things that she has done in her past and her not so distant past. This was just a really, really playful spin on the typical murder mystery thriller sort of category, and I really enjoyed it. I think if you do fun murder mysteries, you should definitely give this book a go, because it was really, really good. Number 3 is Pay the Piper by George A. Romero. This is kind of a Pied Piper retelling, so this one would actually work for the book. Again, not to bring up my book bingo board too much, but there is a prompt in there about myths and legends, and this one would actually work really well for that too. So Pay the Piper is about this little girl who lives in the bayou with her dad, and they are poor. They live in this shack, and a lot of the time they only eat what they catch and that sort of thing. And it's just this really old backwater town that's kind of disappearing, and developers are trying to buy the land. So the people who live in this town are descendants from slavers, essentially. So they had a ship that was full of slaves that sunk in the sea right near where this bayou is, and the Piper is sort of I don't want to say god, but an entity of the ocean, and he wants to get back at the people who killed all of these slaves because their boat sank. And so people start going, and children start going missing, and Renee, who is the little girl who lives in who the story follows, her and her, I think it's her friend, have to sort of solve and deal with the Piper and sort of end this curse. It's kind of a pirate's curse sort of story. It was really, really good. So yeah, Pay the Piper. If you like supernatural stories or myths and legends, highly recommend this book. Number 2 was The Lamb by Lucy Rose. This book ended me. It was so sad. I know, again, this is a really polarizing book. A lot of people didn't really enjoy it. I adored it. It was so good. One of the librarians, was so excited when I picked it up, because she was like, oh my god, you need to tell me what you think, and she loved it just as much as I did. But this one follows a little girl. I can't remember if you've given her name, but she lives in the woods, like with her mum in like a dead end street, like well away in the woods, and kind of in the middle of nowhere. And when so like she does sometimes go to school, but not, I think not very often. But people, when they come to her door or their door, they are eaten. Like, this is cannibalism. So if you can't stand cannibalism, don't read this book. And it's probably not a book that I would even recommend purely because of like the content of it. But one day there is a woman who comes to the door that her mother takes a shining to, and she becomes a part of the family. And then this little girl is just kind of like ignored and set aside. And I'm not going to do any spoilers for this book, but check your trigger warnings. It made me cry. It was so sad at the end, and I loved it. I think it was one of the most amazing books I've read. It was certainly one of the best books I've read because it's number 2 for this year. But also, one of the most common criticisms that I've heard is that it feels really juvenile, but it is told from the perspective of a 10-year-old girl. So I would expect it to be kind of juvenile, if that makes sense, because she's 10. Like, she doesn't have the understanding of the adults who are reading the book. So I think Lucy Rose did a phenomenal job in writing it from the perspective of a 10-year-old girl. And yeah, it was really, really sad. Heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking. But I really enjoyed it. My number 1 favourite book for this year is a book that absolutely put me into the biggest reading slump I have ever experienced in my life. Like, I've never experienced a reading slump like this. Which is really exciting. This is really exciting for me because this is my friend's friend. The author is my friend's friend, and she got this book signed for me for Christmas last year, and I like inhaled it and then read it again a week later because I had nothing else I liked. I couldn't read anything else because everything else was just not good enough. Sorry, without waffling on too much. My favourite book for 2025 is A Queen's Glory by Christy M. Harris. I loved this book so much. It gave me such a reading slump. Like I've said, I can't wait to read it again. I'm so excited. And she started work on the sequel for this book, and I need that like yesterday. So this essentially is set in the realm of Emedoria. There is all sorts of supernatural beings, so like fae, sirens, mermaids, witches. There's also humans, and gods. So they all dwell in this land. The gods are obviously in their own space, but they all dwell in these lands, but they are all very separated. So like the witches have their area, the fae have their area, the sirens have their own area, the humans have their area. They don't intermingle for the most part. But there is Reed, who is like, I don't want to say the main character, but one of the main characters, because this is a multi-point of view book. This is actually a multi-point of view book done very, very well. There is Reed, who is essentially like a street urchin. They're homeless. They just run around. They protect all of the other little street urchins that they live with. But one day the god, what is his name? One day the god of protection decides that Reed will be his champion. This is the first time that the god of protection has used a human for their champion, because they would typically use one of the other fae or one of the other magical creatures as their champion, and so they decide that this time, human, just to do something different, they're going to use a human as their champion. And it is, I don't know if it's fortuitous timing, but like it is good timing because the witch queen has decided to take over everything. Like she wants to own and rule all of the lands. So yeah, I'm going to be reading this very, very soon. Very, very soon actually, because I really want to read it again. And I try really hard. So I have this thing where I don't read or reread the same book in the same year. So it has to be separate years. And I read it last year. And January, like the first week of this year, and I'm probably going to be reading it January of 2026 because I just need to read it again. I loved it so much. And it also made me really, really happy, because this is not something that happens very frequently, that there is a pronunciation guide in the book, because pronunciation guides make it so much easier for immersion, in my opinion, because I have this thing where I pronounce words apparently differently to everybody else, and not always right, obviously, because fiction has, like, whatever the author wants is how they're meant to be pronounced. But yeah, so that made it a lot easier to read this book too. So yeah, my favourite book for this year, because I'm waffling now, I could go on and on and on about this book, but my favourite book for 2025 is A Queen's Glory by Christia Paris. She is an indie author, and I highly, highly, highly recommend, if you enjoy fantasy, like any sort of fantasy books, to pick up her book and support her, because this is amazing. Like, even if she was traditionally published, I would still love this book, I think. But I'm really big on supporting indie authors as well, and because they just don't get enough love, in my opinion. So if you are looking for specifically an indie published book, but if you like fantasy, really recommend giving A Queen's Glory a go, because it is so good. It just holds a special place in my heart. I love it so much. So those are my top 10 favourite books for 2025. I would love to hear your opinion. Did you read them? Or are they on your TBR? I would love to hear your opinions if you have read them, or if they are on your TBR. Thank you all for watching this video and sticking with me, because this again has been much, much longer than I anticipated. And I will see you in whatever comes next.